So I finally was able to get my hands on a GPU that I've been wanting to test for the longest time, and I wound up putting it in the prettiest case I've ever bought, and now I get to talk to you guys about it. And I think I've been sitting on it now for 2, maybe even 3 weeks. I was kind of bummed out initially when I first got it started up for the first results I got. So probably the reason why I hesitated to do the rest of the testing. But eventually when I did get back to it, wound up being super happy with the results here. So being a PC flipper and trying to sell budget PCs or whatnot, even though this is technically above what I would call a budget, but still relatively cheap considering what I'm going to say, what I'm going to tell you it does. But the first thing is that people ask about all the time is Fortnite. What FPS is Fortnite? What FPS is Fortnite? Because everybody wants really high FPS, even if you don't need really high FPS to play this game, but whatever. Everybody wants to see high FPS. So when I first got the game loaded up and averaged like 130, or the average was like 118, with me seeing anywhere between 130 and 160 FPS, I was pretty upset about it. Now I got my RX 6600 at $100 because I was able to grab a Power Color open box at Micro Center, and I think that out of all of the third party GPU makers, that one is the one that always goes for the lowest dollar amount. So I had to remind myself, hey, I got a great deal. This card's like $189. I got it for $100. Relax, go back, finish testing. So I usually test around 4 titles, and they're usually the same. Although I think this time I just tested the 3, simply because of the fact that I know that the last 2 that I tested besides Fortnite are kind of like a good test to see what a GPU or CPU is capable of. And they're 2 really popular titles, right? So Black Myth Wukong is like replaced Cyberpunk in being the go-to game for benchmarking because of how many settings there are and how good the game looks overall. And then there's Warhammer, which isn't really graphically challenging, but just a kind of popular game, even though for some reason people love to attack it. But yeah, so pretty bummed about Fortnite. Although I did realize that I had forgot to properly set my RAM speed. So after I went back and adjusted my my RAM to its full speed, I noticed a fairly large jump in FPS, up to I think the average was at the high points 140, 150 FPS on average, but my numbers would be anywhere between 180 to even 220 at sometimes. Now, so for me, that's still a little bit disappointing. But at the end of the day, guys, I know that people love to say that this game is CPU heavy, that the CPU makes all the difference, and this is a Ryzen 5 4500 build. But guys, if you look at the Ryzen 5500, you get about the same. If you look at the 5600, it's about the same. If you look at the 5600X, it's the same. At that point, we're talking about like $120 some for a CPU. It's not a budget anymore. And remember, guys, the 6600 is supposed to be like an intro level 1080p GPU. So yeah, despite the fact that it's CPU heavy and the 4500 is not considered a great CPU, it really doesn't matter what CPU you're going to throw at this with the 6600. And I don't think that this is because the 6600 isn't a great card. I think that it is. I think that the problem is that the rumors with Nvidia having cornered the market with Fortnite is the case. I have GTX 950 or 980 that runs 225, 250 FPS. It does this and more without breaking a sweat. Same thing with the 1080. And both of the times I tested those cards, they were with server CPUs, so old Xeons, and they were doing that without much effort. I would imagine that, especially with the 1080, that 300 FPS with a good CPU in it wouldn't be a hard thing to do, which is something I will eventually get around to testing out myself. So again, just to see where I was at, I looked at the RX 6600 with better CPUs, pretty much the same results. But then if you go over to the RTX 3060 with the same CPU, you're looking at like 400 FPS. So guys, if you're looking for to slut out with the FPS numbers on Fortnite, then you really just need to go NVIDIA. However, with that being said, the pros to this card are pretty outstanding. It handled Warhammer 40k max settings, no problem. It did at 1080p cinematic settings for Black Myth Wukong, no sweat, 50-60 FPS during a boss fight. I finally hooked it up to my 4K monitor, or TV I should say, a 4K TV, and let it go there, and great results. So 1440p high, no issue. 4K high, no issue. 4K high settings Black Myth Wukong, and I tell you, if you haven't had a chance to play Black Myth Wukong in 4K, you definitely should. That is definitely the resolution that game should be played in. The game looks absolutely amazing in 4K, even with without being able to maximize the settings. But again, you're talking about 4K high settings on a GPU that's supposed to be an intro level 1440p card. So I was happily shocked and amazed that the 6600 was able to crank out those kind of numbers on 4K, as opposed to the B570 with a 4500. It lags so hard on Warhammer 40k at 1080p that if you put on ultra settings, that it's unplayable. So I went from being super excited about the Intel GPU launch to being kind of friggin' bummed out now, because it seems like the rumor that's going around, or the word that's circulating around on YouTube, is that these GPUs don't do well with older CPUs. And even though the 4500 isn't really that old, it seems like when they say older CPUs, they kind of just mean weaker CPUs. So you actually need a mid-level or high-level CPU, it seems, to really get the maximum performance out of the Intel GPUs. And I'm actually kind of happy now. Well, not really. I guess the B570 and the B580 were so close in price that it doesn't really matter much. I picked up a B570, and to be honest, at 1080p, the A580 outperforms the B570. And I don't mean to get sidetracked. That's just something I want to throw out there, again, for the Fortnite people. Overall, guys, I'm really happy with what this GPU was able to do. I'd kind of hyped it up to myself for the longest time, wanting to test it out, and it does. From the most part, from what I've seen, it does outperform the A580. Although I guess I really don't know how many people are going to be trying to buy those now, considering how much they cost versus their big brothers that are now coming on the market. But yeah, just as a reference point, the A580 is supposed to be the direct competition for the RX 6600, and the A580 at 1080p kind of chokes up on Black Myth Wukong at very high settings, which is not that far off. It's just the next step below cinematic, but still, it does very high settings, and it doesn't do it at the greatest. So yeah, I haven't tested the A580 yet at 4K or 1440p, but again, the results from the 6600 are great. As a matter of fact, I guess I would just recommend getting that if you can, instead of getting anything else, or again, even getting an old NVIDIA GPU. I guess right now I'm kind of torn on the next. I do have a 3080 I've been sitting on that I'm going to be building with soon, but with next month coming right around the corner, the 5070 dropping, I was kind of amped up to buy that. I think that's within a doable price range for me. But now I'm kind of thinking that maybe I should just buy a 4060 and call it a day. Better off just buy something I can build and sell versus something to sit on. Because my personal daily driver is Intel with AMD, and my GPU is the 7700 XT. So again, guys, I guess I did forget to mention this computer is for sale right now on Java. The asking price is $650 plus 50 shipping, and that's mainly just to cover the fees, guys. I guess I'd be willing to take $600. I do have it to where you can make an offer. But yeah, again, great looking setup. Pretty happy with the results for that 4500. And this is all brand new parts, which is the whole idea. So the Ryzen 5 4500 with the 6600 actually does pretty well. So again, as long as you're not looking to maximize FPS in Fortnite, and you're wanting to play some 1440p or even 4K gaming, this is a great intro level setup for that. Thank you guys for watching, and peace.